Hey everyone, hope everybody's having an awesome day. Thanks for clicking on the video. If you want to see more videos out of me, don't forget to like and subscribe. And my name's Rob. I play violin, and I'm going to teach you a little bit today about tone and how to get a really good sound out of your instrument. I'm going to show you how to get a good tone and also how to listen to yourself when you're at home in the practice room and hear certain sounds that you're making and be able to troubleshoot those while you're playing and figure out what you need to fix. So I found that my adult students in the past have kind of a hang-up with tone. I think it's mostly because they're 40 or 50 or whatever, and they've heard violin for a number of years, and so when they don't get a good sound, it's frustrating for me because I'll try to focus on rhythm or intonation, and they just can't get tone out of their head, and they just lose their minds a little bit. So I'll show you some ways that you can get a good tone. So there's kind of 6 different ways that I found to be able to get a good tone of things that you're doing wrong or right or whatever. The first thing is kind of dealing with the weight. So when you're pulling the string, you're actually really grabbing it, right? The rosin off of your string, off of your bow hairs, are grabbing the string, and it's vibrating the string. The sound goes in the F holes, or in the box, and then out the F holes, right? And so when you're thinking about this, don't really think of it more of like a press. You're going to be grabbing it more than actually pressing. And when we do want to put more like sort of force on it, I would urge you to think of more of weight. Obviously, when you're putting more force down, we don't really realize it, but we have 10 or 20 or whatever pounds in our arm, and you might be surprised how little you have to really pull on it to get it to make a sound. I mean, I didn't really press there at all, and I still got a kind of ringy sound. And so when we're using this weight or this pressure, a couple interesting things happens. When you press too much, sometimes you hear this sort of scratchy sound. It sort of sounds like this. Right? Pretty unpleasant, right? We get that sort of scratchy sound. And usually what that means is that you're probably putting too much pressure on. Right? So you want to kind of let up and not so much force. Now, at the same time, if you go too little, a couple sounds to listen for is you might hear like a squeaky sound, or you might hear sort of an airy sound. It's sort of kind of like this. Hear that kind of stuff going on? And so what that usually means is you're not putting enough weight. And there I kind of pressed a little bit, and all of a sudden I got the ringy sound. Where you want to be is sort of right in the middle, and you're going to get sort of a ringy or a resonant kind of a sound. Right? You want to hear the nice and ringy, so not too much weight and not too little of weight. You want to be kind of right in the middle. I found it really funny that when you listen to car guys, like sometimes the really good ones can just hear the engine and go, oh, that's the starter. Oh, that's the alternator. They can even hear the problem. And so that's what I want you guys to do. When you hear that scratchy sound, just know that it's too much weight. When you hear the airy or squeakies, a lot of times it's not enough, right? So you want to hear those things while you're practicing so you can fix it as you go. So weight is a really big thing that we're dealing with violin. And remember that one of the reasons why this instrument is just completely ridiculous, right, is the fact that you're having to constantly adjust this weight and pressure. When you get up to the frog, already, if we're talking about grams or whatever, already this side of the bow is going to be heavier than that side. And when you get up to the frog, you have your arm weight to deal with, right? So when you get up towards the frog, you're going to have to let off just a little bit. And so you're going to be not as much. And then when you get out, I'm pressing a little bit right here and using my weight, right? My little contact point in the string with my first finger there. And so as you get up to here, you're going to have to give a little bit more weight or pressure, and then you get back to the frog and it's less again. And you're just going to be constantly adjusting this weight, right? It's a difficult thing to do but when you play a lot, you get used to your bow kind of just doing this naturally. Okay, so the weight is a really big one. Another one that I've noticed a lot with my students is you want the bow sort of parallel to the bridge, right? So this is sort of parallel to the bridge. You see the bridge is sort of at that angle and I'm here. What happens a lot is when people bow at first, they try to do it with their shoulder and they get this thing, right? And you see how this is locked and this is locked and I got this going on, right? And so look what happens with my bow angle. Right? I'm moving all over the place because I'm not pulling out with my forearm. We're really bowing with our forearm. Watch my arm here and notice how my upper arm doesn't really move that much. Right? I'm really extending and opening this up. And you're going to have to adjust your wrist angle. I'm out when I'm down here, and then when I get up here, I'm sort of like looking at my watch. Right? Sort of convex and concave, and I'm going to have to adjust my wrist as I go. And so you want to keep that right in line with your bridge or the end of your fingerboard, right? And when you have that really perpendicular to the string, like this, or parallel to the bridge, you can grab the string really good, right? When I go like this, I'm going to start getting that airy sound again, or the whiny sound. And so when it's perpendicular, you can really grab the string right. So sometimes your weight might be totally perfect, but you're actually not parallel to the bridge. All right, so that might be the issue. Third thing we're going to talk about is bow between the bridge and the fingerboard. So sometimes your angle is perfect, but let's say, for example, you're like out here. It's really hard for me to get a good sound, even if I'm pressing a lot. And so where you want to be is you want to be sort of right in between the fingerboard and the bridge most of the time. All right, you want to stay right here. Okay, and so that's going to actually help you with your tone as well. Another interesting thing is when you start getting closer to the bridge, are you hearing that kind of whiny sound, right? So that's another thing you can listen for. When it starts to get that whiny sound, it might be that you're too close to the bridge. So that can obviously affect your tone too. You might be perfectly parallel and your weight might be perfect, but you're actually too close to the bridge. All right? And another thing to notice about that is, I don't know if you guys can see this, but when I'm on the G string doing something kind of strong, look at where my bow is compared to the bridge. I'm out a little bit, right? 3/4 of an inch, half an inch, something like that, right? But what's interesting is when I start going to my higher strings and I'm doing a really nice forte, I will kind of move in here a little bit naturally. Look where I'm at now. Look at where it is. It's much closer to the bridge. So you just kind of have to be aware of this, right? You want to just kind of, and I'm doing that sort of naturally. And as you play, you're going to kind of find this, right? Another one that you probably at first, when you're first starting, that you don't have to worry about so much, but this does affect your tone, is hairs flat on the string. So you guys probably won't be able to see this very good, but when I tilt my bow, this always felt more normal to me than this for some reason. And so when I do this and I tilt too much, I can see right here that like half of my hairs are actually on the string. When I watch my wrist and I rotate my wrist back, now all of my hairs are flat. Right? And the same thing this way. If you rotate too much this way, I'm still getting half my hairs on the string. So you want those hairs perfectly flat on the string so you can get so you can grab the string as much as you can. Right? So this is another one that will sort of affect your tone. Right? So kind of watch for not rotating your bow too crazy. Right? Now, another big one that I've been focusing on with my students a lot recently is bow speed. So sometimes what happens is you're putting, like, if you think about like pounds of pressure, right? Let's say you put 20 pounds of pressure on there, but if I'm going like 90 miles an hour, that's going to just skirt all over the string. And I'm going to get that kind of sound, right? I was giving it a good amount of, force on there, but because I'm going so fast, my bow can't grab the string right? And so with your bow speed, you want to get your bow speed just like the weight, where you've got to find that kind of perfect medium. Bow speed kind of works the same way. If I go too fast, I get that wishy-washy, but also if I go too slow, and let's say I put that same 20 pounds of pressure, if I go too slow, I start getting the scratchy stuff again, right? So you want your bow speed to sort of be able to use your bow speed to give a good sound. I found that a lot of my students go way too fast with their bow, and it's really hard for them to get a good tone. And so you put that 20 pounds of pressure on. If I go too fast, then it's going to sound really bad. If I'm going faster, then I'm going to have to push a little bit harder to get into the string. When I start going slower, I'm going to have to let off of my pressure a little bit and give like 10 pounds of pressure or something, right? Half as much force, all right? So watch out for your bow speed, that you're not pulling way too fast with your bow. You want that nice and slow. As soon as I start going faster, I start like bouncing on the string. When you hear that, one I forgot to mention is bounciness is another one. Bounciness is going to be on this side. That usually means that you're not pressing hard enough. Right? A lot of times when you see all that stuff, I'm not pressing in at all. As soon as you push down pretty hard, it's going to be very hard to bounce the bow. So bounciness is another one that you might hear that usually means not enough weight, or you're not parallel to the bridge. Okay? Now, last thing we'll talk about, which was really interesting. When I went to college, I took, many lessons through college. When I got done, I started working a lot with some rock stuff, jazz, funk, blues, that kind of thing, and I was writing my albums. Okay, so I wrote 2 albums, and instead of playing like this in my room, I was sitting here like guitar style, and I was playing these like rock riffs because they sounded more bassy or more guitar-y, right? And so what happened was I kind of screwed up my technique a little bit. And so after college, after that, I went back and got some lessons, and this guy gave me like a year's worth of technique to deal with. And what happened was 2 things. One, with your tone, what happened was I was getting very tight, and a lot of that was because I was playing a lot of rock stuff too, where I was really like digging in hard. And so I was getting really tight, and he was showing me that you need to sort of relax a little bit. Right? You need to relax, and this is actually a thing that can help your tone as well, is that I was squeezing too hard, and he was telling me to sort of relax my shoulders, and all of a sudden my tone got better. So another thing, if you're pressing too hard, just relaxing a little bit, especially your shoulders, is going to help that. So that was one thing he taught me, but another thing he taught me was reminding me that tone is not just right hand. Tone is also left hand. And so, for example, you guys can't really see this, but if I'm barely pressing down, I'm never going to get a very good tone. Again, you might have the perfect amount of weight on there, but I'm not pressing at all. It's like I'm doing a harmonic. Right? So part of your tone is the fact that you're engaging. So hardly at all. And now I press. And listen to the difference. Right? So you have to engage the string pretty well. Right? With it, you get a really good pad on your finger, or on the fingerboard. right? So part of your tone is your left hand. Another thing that's really interesting, I don't know if this is going to be blurry, if you guys can see this, but one thing that I was doing, I don't know if you can see this second string. Well, my second finger is barely on the D string, and that's what was happening to me, is I was able to get enough in there to hear the note, but look at how that's barely on the string, right? But he wanted me to do that. Right? You see the difference? That string is right in the middle of my finger now, right? And I'm getting very good contact on the string. And so this was particularly happening when I was on my right side on my like higher strings, and I would reach over to a bottom string like D or G, and I would just be lazy and not quite get all the way over there. And so that was the most annoying thing of the stuff that he was asking me to refix, is that trying to get my fingers to get all the way over to the D string, and where my finger is exactly in the middle instead of barely off of it. Right? So that's another thing with your left hand, that you want to make sure that you get your finger all the way over there. Right? So really, really watch your left hand and make sure you're really engaging with the string properly. And so all of this stuff can really, really help your tone and get a really nice sound. And it's really hilarious. I found that intonation, if you play really in tune, already everybody thinks you're 80% better than you actually are, because it's so pleasant to listen to. And tone actually works the same way, is that if you get a really nice sound, the audience is, you know, they're really feeling, they really think you sound really good, even if your rhythm is really bad, even if you get off on pitch a little bit. If you have a nice quality of a sound, it'll sound really pleasant to the audience. So these are a bunch of things that you want to listen for when you're in your practice room. You want to watch that bounciness, right? You want to watch the airiness. You want to watch some of the squeaks and the honks that you do. And then you want to watch the scratch, right? Making sure you're not scratching. You want to be right in the middle to get a nice ringy sound. All right? So that's a little bit about tone. I think if you guys deal with this, if you're a beginner, I would deal a lot with the bow parallel to the bridge and making sure it's between the fingerboard and the bridge. That's going to be like 90% of your problem, is getting your bow in the right spot. The last thing I want to say about the weight is one thing that happens that I found is that when you're dealing with something like rhythm, you know, it won't take like 2 minutes, but I found rhythm sometimes can be pretty quick for people, and even in a couple of days or months or whatever, you can still kind of figure rhythm out, but tone doesn't work that way. Tone, you have to be able to sort of find it and do it over many, like weeks, months, years. And so with tone, I would urge you to not get frustrated, right? A lot of times what happens, especially with my adult students, is they'll play a note and and they just immediately stop because they want it to sound perfect immediately. And I would urge you to not worry about that. I would urge you to just keep playing through it. It'll be weird because you'll sit here for like 2 pages, which might be like 1,000 notes or hundreds of notes. And let's say it's 1,000 notes in this piece, and you honked or scratched or whatever 200 of them. Well, that's 800 that you didn't scratch, right? So you're not actually doing ridiculously bad. You're doing okay, right? You didn't scratch 800 of them, right? And so what I would urge you to is always what you're trying to do is if you scratch or honk or whatever 200 of them, your goal next time is to scratch like 150 of them. Right? And then 120 of them and 100 of them, you know, as you play, I would just, if you start squeaking and stuff, I would just urge you to just keep playing through it and kind of find it. There's really a finding it thing. I can tell you all the physical stuff you're doing, but it's very, very internal where you've got to just kind of find your tone. So I would urge you to play a lot. And I definitely would urge you to play a lot of long tones so you can feel the feeling of the frog, middle, tip, middle, frog, middle, you know, and really really play through it. Don't stop so much with tone, especially in warm-ups. This happens a lot where we start warming up and then we just squeak, squeak, squeak. But everybody knows that as you go 5, 10, 15 minutes, all of a sudden some of that starts going away. So I would just urge you, don't get too frustrated with it. You're going to have to do this over a long time. And tone is a perfectly reasonable thing to work on, but I wouldn't get too obsessed with it, because it will come in time, right? Don't expect this to get fixed in like a day. You're going to have to do lots and lots and lots of muscle memory to just keep playing. I would for sure focus on getting your bow in the right spot, and think a little bit about your weight, and when you get there, really think about your bow speed, right? And see if you're going maybe way too fast. Slow down your bow speed, or speed it up if you're going ridiculously slow, right? So don't get too frustrated, right? Just keep playing and you'll find it. You can do it. So there you go. Thank you guys for watching. That's a little bit about tone, and I'll do some more of these tutorial videos. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And yeah, I'll see you guys later.